Hey, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful idea that's flipping brand building on its head, especially now in the digital age. It's called Goodwill IPification, and trust me, it might just change how you think about creating real, lasting value. So, let's just start with the big question, right? In a world that is just flooded with ads and noise, how does a brand actually genuinely connect with people? How do they earn that loyalty, that trust, that thing that makes you choose them over everybody else? And if your first thought is, well, they just run more ads, then we've got to update that thinking. The old playbook of just buying up a bunch of ad space and shouting your message, that's just broken. It doesn't work like it used to. No, instead, there's a new formula, a much smarter and honestly more powerful way to build something real, something that sinks into the culture. So let's dive into what that looks like. So what is this new formula? Well, it all starts with a pretty simple but really profound equation. And here it is. Your brand's value equals its goodwill plus its IP. Let's unpack that real quick. Goodwill. Think of that as the brand's credit asset. It's all the trust and the great reputation it's earned by, just being good at what it does. And then IP, or intellectual property, that's the cultural asset. All the stories, the symbols, the stuff that makes it an unforgettable part of our world. And this table just lays the shift out so clearly. Look, we're moving away from the old tactic of just advertising to this new strategy of goodwill IPification. The goal isn't just to broadcast a message anymore, it's to create these cultural assets that people can actually interact with. And maybe the biggest change is the model itself. It's not top-down control. It's decentralized, where your own community, your own fans help build the brand with you. All right, so let's break that formula down. We're going to start with the first, and I'd argue maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle, goodwill. So what exactly is goodwill? It's not some fuzzy, vague feeling. It's a real, tangible asset for a brand. It's the social reputation, the trust that you earn, and you have to earn it. You can't buy it by just having great products and services day in and day out. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a brand's digital street cred. Now, Goodwill has some really interesting qualities. First, it's always built on quality. But here's the key thing. It's naturally fragmented. It's scattered all over the place. It lives in thousands of little moments. A great online review, a super helpful customer service call, a smart tweet from the founder. And that scattered nature, that's actually its biggest strength in the age of social media. It's perfect for it. Okay, so you've got all this positive, scattered energy out there. How do you actually harness it? How do you turn it into something focused and powerful? Well, that brings us to the next step, which is turning that goodwill into a concrete asset, into intellectual property, or IP. And this whole process, this transformation, is what we call goodwill IPification. This is the secret sauce, the alchemy of the formula. It's the very intentional act of gathering up all that scattered trust, all that reputation, and forging it into something focused, powerful, and incredibly valuable. A real cultural asset. All right, so that sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? Let's get practical here for a second and open up the IPification playbook. So think of this as a strategic map. The playbook gives you 4 main starting points for building your IP: your product, your founder, your service, and your culture. So just take a second and ask yourself, for your brand or your project, which one of these boxes holds the most untapped goodwill? Where's your gold mine? Let's make this real with some examples. For product IP, just think about Oreo. They took the simple design of their cookie, the black and white circle, and turned it into this global icon of playfulness. That's where Twist Lick Dunk comes from. That's IP. Then there's founder IP. The tech giant Xiaomi basically built their brand around their founder Lei Jun's personality as this relatable geek uncle. That authentic charm created a massive, loyal following and literally saved them a fortune in ads. And this works for service and culture too. You have the restaurant chain Hadilao, which is famous for its over-the-top customer service. I'm talking free manicures while you wait, noodle-pulling dances right at your table. They turned that unique experience into their IP. People share stories about it constantly. Or for culture IP, look at a liquor brand like Mao Tai. They pull from their incredibly deep historical roots, making their centuries-old story a central part of their massive brand value. So you pick a starting point from that playbook, you start doing the work, but what's the end result? What are you actually trying to create? What does this stuff look like out in the wild? Well, the whole process really boils down to creating three types of cultural assets. First, you get engaging stories that turn your good reputation into narratives people want to share. Second, you get iconic symbols that take an idea about your brand and make it tangible, something people connect with emotionally. And third, you get viral memes, fun, relatable content that practically begs people to join in and play along. And why these three things specifically? It's really simple. Because in the world of social media, nobody shares a corporate mission statement, right? What spreads like wildfire is emotion, stuff that reinforces our identity, and content that people can have fun with. Stories, symbols, and memes. They're basically the native language of the internet. So here's the main takeaway, the most crucial point of this whole thing. This entire process is about one powerful conversion. You're taking all that scattered, low-density trust, that is your goodwill, and you are concentrating it, focusing it, into high-value cultural assets that become your IP. And that is how you build a real competitive advantage, a moat around your brand, that your competitors can't just cross by throwing more money at ads. And that really brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. Think about your own brand, or maybe your company, or even just your own personal reputation. What piece of your goodwill, that trust you have already worked so hard to earn, is just sitting there, waiting for you to transform it into your next great cultural asset?